There's a war you've been avoiding, not because you're weak, but because no one taught you how to fight it. It doesn't start with others. It begins in the silence of your own mind. That's where most people lose, and they don't even realize they're at war. Because the enemy looks like comfort, distraction, and even love. Machiavelli wouldn't waste his time on the masses. He knew the truth. Power belongs to those who conquer themselves first. And if you're still stuck in a cycle of excuses, you haven't started the real game. You've been manipulated by fear, by your own laziness, by fake voices pretending to care. The moment you stop begging for peace, you finally start building strength. This video is not for those looking for motivation. It's for those who want transformation, the brutal, honest kind. Here, you'll learn how to weaponize pain, master silence, and rise without applause. Because the greatest changes don't come with permission, they come with precision. And no one needs to understand your war for you to win it. If you're still here, it means something in you refuses to die quietly. That's not weakness. That's your edge. That's your awakening. You won't find softness in the words ahead, only sharpened truths. And in each one, a blade, forged to slice through your illusions. Ready to bleed? Good. Then let's begin the war that rewrites your story.
You were lied to, and that lie became your cage. They told you to be nice, to wait your turn, to please everyone. That if you played fair, life would reward you. That's the first lie. You were trained to be soft when you should have been sharp. And while you smiled to be accepted, they sharpened their knives. You became a mirror, reflecting approval instead of power. Society doesn't reward goodness, it rewards usefulness. And when your usefulness runs out, so does their loyalty. They taught you obedience, not strategy, submission, not sovereignty. So you kept shrinking yourself to fit places you were never meant to stay. That's how they keep control, with invisible chains dressed as values. The people who told you to be patient are already far ahead. The ones who sold you humility use arrogance to dominate. You were raised to be agreeable, and now you're surrounded by manipulators. That's no coincidence. That was the design. And if you don't wake up, you'll keep bleeding quietly in their game. Machiavelli knew the truth. Whoever shapes your beliefs owns your future. The system doesn't fear rebels. It fears the man who thinks for himself. You were never weak, just domesticated. Taught to chase love instead of respect. Taught to fear power instead of mastering it. But you were never born to live on your knees. The cage they built around you was made of sweet lies, and you kept calling it morality when it was manipulation. You kept calling it humility when it was self-erasure. Now the question is, are you ready to burn that cage? This is not about revenge. It's about resurrection. Because once you see the lie, you can't unsee it. And once you taste power, begging becomes disgusting. This is your pivot from pleaser to strategist, from puppet to player. So let the nice guy die. Mourn him, bury him, and never speak his name again. He served his role and kept you weak. Now rise as what they fear, a man who sees, and a man who sees becomes a man who wins.
The cost of being good and the power of being misunderstood. Being good was never about you.
It was about control. They told you to be good so you'd never be powerful, because power requires boundaries, and boundaries offend the weak. The more you try to be liked, the more they strip your spine, and every yes you gave out of fear became a brick in your own prison. You learned to apologize for existing, to dull your edge so others wouldn't feel insecure. But what did it cost you? Your time, your fire, your essence. They taught you to be digestible, not dangerous. But greatness was never meant to be polite. Here's what they don't tell you. The misunderstood man is untouchable because he's unpredictable, because he stopped explaining himself. Let them call you arrogant. It means they can't control you anymore. Let them call you cold. It means they feel your distance. Power isn't loud. Power is restraint. Power is silence that makes them nervous. When you break free from being nice, you stop seeking permission. You stop dressing your truth in sugar. And people start showing you their true faces. Masks fall fast. You'll lose admirers, but you'll gain self-respect. And respect feeds a man far better than applause. Machiavelli warned, if you must choose between being loved or feared, choose fear. Not because fear is cruel, but because love is unstable. Fear anchors power. It gives you room to move. You don't need them to like you. You need them to never forget you. And that's a different kind of dominance. So stop chasing clarity from the confused. Stop asking sheep to understand your lion's roar. The more misunderstood you are, the more untouchable you become. Because now they don't know your next move. And a man without a map is a man they can't trap. From this day forward, wear their confusion like a crown. Their disapproval is proof of your evolution. You weren't born to be accepted, you were born to be undeniable. Be feared, be misunderstood, be sovereign. Because power begins the moment you stop needing to explain.
When you detach, you become dangerous. Detachment is not coldness, it's clarity. It's the ability to see without craving. When you detach, you stop bleeding for people who enjoy watching you hurt. You stop chasing approval and start observing behavior. And that shift makes you unpredictable and powerful. Most people live in chains built from emotional debt. They stay in toxic rooms because they're addicted to validation. But the moment you detach, the illusion shatters. You stop asking, why did they do this? And start asking, why did I stay? Emotional detachment is misunderstood because most people fear themselves. They fear being alone with their thoughts, their shadows, their truth. But a man who detaches masters silence. And silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Still waters run deep and dangerous. When you detach, your enemies can't provoke you. Their games fall flat, their bait loses flavor. They can't weaponize your emotions anymore. And that confuses them because now they're powerless. You stop dancing to their chaos. Machiavelli would say, a king doesn't flinch when peasants scream, because detachment is not absence, it's dominance. It's the control to act, not react. The wisdom to wait, watch, and strike when it matters.
And in that stillness, you terrify the unpredictable. They'll say you've changed, that you've grown cold, but really, you've grown strong. You've learned the difference between peace and people-pleasing, and your silence becomes your sword, a weapon no one saw coming. Detach from outcomes, and they can't threaten you. Detach from opinions, and they can't manipulate you. Detach from drama, and you starve their control. Because when your peace is self-sourced, you become untouchable. And that's when real power begins. This is not about isolation. It's about elevation. You don't disappear to run. You disappear to reign, to build your empire in silence, to become the man who needs nothing and controls everything. Detach, watch, conquer.
The ones who hurt you taught you everything. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it never lies. Those who betrayed you gave you sight. Those who left you gave you space to evolve. And those who mocked you gave you fire. They shaped the steel you now carry in silence. Stop resenting the wound. It carved your wisdom. Stop wishing they hadn't hurt you. That pain woke you up. They exposed what you tolerated. They revealed who you were pretending to be, and they forced you to become something greater. The enemy plays a sacred role in your rise. Without resistance, there is no refinement. Your strength was forged in humiliation, not praise. Your patience was born in rejection, not comfort. And your power was summoned by pain, not applause. Those who harmed you expected your collapse, but you built yourself in the ruins. You studied the betrayal. You absorbed the patterns. You turned every scar into strategy. And now they fear the very man they created. Don't seek revenge. Become the warning. Let your silence remind them of what they lost. Let your glow haunt their memory. And let your mastery echo louder than their lies. Because true vengeance is elevation. You don't need apologies. You need perspective. You don't need closure. You need clarity. They didn't break you. They broke your illusion. And what's left is the most dangerous version of you. Calm, calculated, unshakable. This is how the game changes. You stop explaining and you start evolving. You stop reacting and you start observing. The more they try to pull you down, the higher you rise in silence. So honor the lesson, not the liar. The pain was real, but so is your power. They taught you boundaries. They taught you focus. And in the end, they taught you freedom.
Why you feel so lost, and why that's power. Feeling lost isn't failure. It's the signal that you're awakening. You no longer fit where you once belonged. The lies that used to comfort you now make you sick. And the masks you wore no longer stick to your face. This confusion is not chaos. It's the start of truth. You're shedding false identities. That emptiness you feel, it's space being created. Space for something real, something yours. You were programmed to chase approval, not purpose. Now the program is crashing, and that's power. When the world no longer makes sense, it's because you're seeing it without illusion.
You start questioning the noise, noticing the manipulation, and sensing the weakness behind fake strength. You feel lost because you're stepping out of the herd. They want you numb, obedient, predictable. But the lost man becomes the seeker, and the seeker becomes the master. Every master was once a man wandering without a map. They told you to fear this stage, to panic, to run back to comfort. But you stayed. You endured the silence. You faced the unknown with open eyes. And that choice made you dangerous. Because now you no longer follow, you lead. Not by shouting, but by walking alone. Not by dominating, but by embodying calm. You start attracting those who are also awakening, and together you become a new breed of power. The lost phase is sacred. It rewrites your soul. Don't rush to escape it. Sit in the discomfort. Breathe through the fog. Let the void teach you. That's where the old self dies and the real one begins. They'll try to label you, call you unstable, antisocial, arrogant. But that's only because they can't control you anymore. And when they can't control you, they fear you.
The power of not explaining yourself. Silence is a weapon the weak never learn to master. They rush to justify, to clarify, to be understood. But the man who stops explaining himself becomes untouchable. He speaks only when it serves power, not approval. That silence, it becomes his armor. Every time you explain, you hand over control. You invite judgment, interpretation, distortion. You give people tools to limit you, to define you on their terms, and they will always shrink you to what comforts them. Let them misunderstand you. Let them twist your silence into arrogance. Their confusion is not your responsibility. You weren't born to be digestible. You were born to be undeniable. The most powerful men in history moved in silence. They didn't announce their next step. They let their actions echo louder than their words. Mystery became their brand, and strategy became their language. When you no longer explain, you force others to observe you, to wonder, to guess, and in their guessing, they reveal their fears. You become a mirror, reflecting their insecurities. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll demand your reasons. But what they're really asking for is a way to control your behavior again. Don't give them that luxury. Let your silence scream. Let your distance speak volumes. Not to punish, but to protect. Not to wound, but to win. Because when you stop explaining, you start becoming. You evolve beyond the need for permission. And in that evolution, you reclaim your throne. Quiet, unapologetic, and utterly free. The discipline that breaks your chains. Discipline isn't a punishment, it's a rebellion. It's the war you wage against your lesser self. Every morning you rise with purpose. You're refusing to be average. Every time you act without motivation, you crush weakness beneath your heel. That's not routine. That's self-liberation. Most people beg for freedom while living like slaves. Slaves to impulses, to distraction, to comfort.
But the disciplined man owns his time like a king. He doesn't wait to feel like doing it. He decides and acts. That's how empires are built from within. True discipline is brutal and beautiful. It forces you to choose what you want most over what you want now. It whispers in your ear when no one is watching. Do it anyway. That voice, that's your inner general. Your body will rebel. Your mind will resist. But your soul, it craves this war. It was born to conquer laziness. It was made to rise above the noise. And with each disciplined action, it ascends. There's no glory in excuses, no power in pity. Only the disciplined taste the sweetness of victory. Because they earned it in silence. While others slept, they sharpened their sword. Discipline is loyalty to your future self. It's honoring the man you're becoming, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. That pain, it's the price of power, and most will never be willing to pay it. People will mock your routines. They'll say you're obsessed. Let them laugh. Their freedom is fake. Yours is forged in fire. Because once discipline becomes your religion, there's nothing they can chain you with. You answer to no one but your mission, and that makes you dangerous, unbreakable, untouchable.
Your pain has a purpose if you dare to face it. Because pain is a map, not a prison. It shows you where the wound is and where your power hides. Ignore it and you stay weak. Face it and you become dangerous. Pain isn't there to break you. It's there to reveal you. It strips the ego, burns the illusions, and leaves only truth. And yes, truth hurts. But truth also heals, strengthens, liberates. That's why the world avoids it. If you numb your pain, you also numb your potential. That ache in your chest, it's not just suffering, it's instruction. Every scar whispers, look deeper. Every tear says, there's more of you to unlock. But you must be still enough to listen. Pain sharpens the soul like a blade. Every moment you endured without giving up, that was power earned. While others begged for comfort, you bled with purpose. And now your silence has weight. Now your presence commands respect. There is no growth without struggle, no fire without fuel, no greatness without pain. So stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this making of me? They told you pain meant failure. They lied. Pain is proof you're still alive, still fighting, still becoming who you were meant to be. When you rise from pain, not just survive it, you become untouchable. Not because you're numb, but because you've been forged. Forged in nights no one saw, in storms you walked through alone. Now your pain is your armor. So don't waste your suffering. Make it sacred. Let it teach you. Let it transform you. Because a man who knows how to use his pain is unstoppable.
You've been programmed to play small, break the spell. You weren't born weak. You were trained to shrink. From childhood, the world whispered, don't be too much. Don't speak too loud. Don't stand too tall. Fit in, obey, disappear. and that was the beginning of your prison. Every system around you benefits from your silence. Schools teach obedience, not greatness. Jobs reward compliance, not courage. Society praises the average, fears the exceptional. So you learned to dim your fire. But the truth, you were made for more. The discomfort you feel isn't failure, it's a signal that your soul is suffocating inside expectations. You feel restless because you're not living, you're performing, and every day you act small, your spirit rebels. The voice inside you, the one that says there is more, is not lying. It's not foolish, it's not naive. It's the last piece of your truth trying to survive. You've obeyed long enough. Now it's time to awaken. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need approval to become great. The spell they cast on you loses power the moment you see it. And you're seeing it now. That's why your old life no longer fits. You've been programmed to fear your own potential, because a man who knows his power cannot be controlled. He stops asking, he starts leading, and that terrifies the world. So they trained you to doubt yourself. But doubt is not truth, it's just a habit, and habits can be broken. With decision, with action, with fire. You weren't meant to crawl through life. You were built to rise and reign. So rise, not with noise, but with presence. Not with rage, but with clarity. Break the spell they put on your name and become the man you are never supposed to be.
Your transformation is the revenge. Silence is the strategy. You don't need to shout your comeback. Real revenge isn't noise, it's elevation. They'll watch you rise in silence, confused by your absence. You won't argue. Every time they mocked you, they carved your clarity. You don't need their recognition, you need your own fire. You don't owe them a speech, you owe yourself a new identity. And that identity is forged in solitude. While they gossip, you grow. While they laugh, you build. While they pretend you're finished, you begin again. The man who transforms in silence doesn't seek applause. He becomes the thing they never saw coming. You don't post the process, you protect it. You don't flaunt the progress, you embody it. You let them think you're quiet because you've lost, but deep down, you're just sharpening the blade. And one day, they'll feel the cut. They tried to break you with disrespect, but what they really did was trigger your evolution. And now, every step you take is power reclaimed. Every breath you take is control restored. Every version you outgrow becomes a weapon. The new you isn't for them to see, it's for them to feel. Not in confrontation, but in distance. Not in debate, but in difference. You don't walk back into old rooms to prove anything. You leave them behind as evidence. The ones who laughed won't be laughing long. The silence they mocked will become the storm they fear, because transformation is louder than retaliation, and your presence will say everything without you saying a word. So vanish, work, transform, become the question they can't answer, the shadow they can't read, the power they didn't predict. That is your revenge, and it begins now.
In the end, no enemy can defeat you more than your own weakness. and no victory will taste greater than mastering yourself. The noise fades, the battles shift, the world forgets, but the man who rises from his ruins never forgets who he became. You are no longer reacting, you are commanding. They won't understand how you became this untouchable. They'll wonder why their tactics stopped working. Because you're no longer playing their game, you rewrote the rules. You don't need a crown when your presence commands respect. And silence? That became your loudest roar. It wasn't about winning an argument. It was about becoming someone who no longer needs to argue. You chose the higher war, the war of transformation. And now everything you touch will carry that power. They will feel your distance like a punishment. You stopped explaining. You stopped proving. You started evolving. You started building. You understood that not everything needs to be said, just shown. And now your discipline speaks louder than any insult. Your life became the statement. The world respects the man who doesn't beg for it, who doesn't flinch under pressure, who walks with silence and strikes with presence. That's who you've become. Not because you wanted revenge, but because you wanted peace. Your power is no longer reactive, it's rooted. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't explain, it demands. It doesn't scream, it watches. That's why no one can shake you anymore. So here's the question only you can answer. Will you go back to seeking validation? Or will you stay where the power lives, in your control, your silence, your path? Because once you taste true self-mastery, the old world no longer fits. Now go. Live as if nothing can break you, because you already were, and you rebuilt. Become what they never saw coming. And remember, your silence was always the loudest proof.